East Division winner, no questions asked.
I agree with you.
Now, not so much. You're going to have to wait to find out.
So what do you think with Georgia? What about their schedule?
All right, let's look at what they got. Georgia, it seems like every year, got a great draw in the schedule. Playing Buffalo at home to open up, then that game at Missouri that we mentioned, then home against Florida Atlantic, followed by a home game against Vanderbilt. So basically the first 4 games, not really all that tough of tests. After Vandy, they got Tennessee at home, followed by a trip to South Carolina, a trip to Kentucky, the world's largest cocktail party against Florida, followed by a home game at Ole Miss. They have to go to Auburn this year. Then they get Georgia Southern at home, followed by the clean old-fashioned hate game against Georgia Tech, which is at Sanford Stadium this year.
Ramblin' Wreck.
Ramblin' Wreck. Going to try to dethrone Georgia. Not sure if that one's going to happen, but I don't know. Pretty good. No Alabama, no LSU,
right?
No Texas A&M, no Arkansas, I believe.
No Arkansas.
I mean, geez.
The schedule lines up for them. I just have a hard time believing that Georgia is going to break out this year. I just don't see it, and I really don't see it if their defensive players are suspended early on, which I imagine that they will be. I've actually got a surprising pick. I think Georgia's going to go 9-3. Now that's going away from the experts, who a lot of them pick Georgia to win the East. I see losses early to Missouri. I've got a loss to Vandy, and I've got a loss to South Carolina.
I'm right there with you. I see 9-3 as well. I got that loss to Missouri penciled in as well early in the season. Running back problems, secondary problems, too much to overcome for them at Missouri, who will be amped up for their first SEC game at home.
Definitely.
I see a loss to South Carolina. I think that's going to be a real tough trip for them. And maybe a homer pick here, but I see a loss at Auburn too. So, I don't know. Like I said, if Georgia still had a running back, they would have been my runaway SEC East pick. But the real question becomes, let's say they do go 9-3. What is the win number? We probably say this every year, but what is the win number Mark Richt has to get to keep his job?
I'd say 9 wins.
You really think so? That high?
I think 9 wins. He might be able to get away with 8, but if he has 7 wins this year with all the expectation, it would be considered a failure, and he's gone.
Yeah. I think with this schedule and the talent that Georgia has, Georgia fans are going to be expecting a lot more than 8 wins.
If they don't even get to the SEC championship game and they have more than 1 loss, I think they'll find a reason to get rid of him.
Or maybe a Tommy Tuberville-esque resignation where, once a guy's been at a school for that long, things just start to get stale, And
that's right.
Recruits, they're high school kids, they want something new and fresh, and that's not really Mark Richt right now.
Not.
So, I don't know.
He'll land on his feet. He's a good guy.
He is. He's a great guy. That's what everybody always says about him. Kind of a weird contradiction because he's a great guy, but terrible discipline. I don't know. Don't know how those things relate exactly. I do know that we're going to take a quick commercial break. We're going to come back, talk about the last SEC team, other than Alabama or Auburn, that, of course, the South Carolina Gamecocks. We'll be talking about them right here on the other side of Outputting Our Coverage.
We're back, don't know what we're talking about. 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 We're back, here we go. No more commercials. Here we go. Always talking stuff. We're back, don't know what we're talking about, but we're back. Time for the show.
All right, here we go. As promised, final segment here of Outputting Our Coverage. Let's talk about South Carolina, the ever-popular Steve Spurrier, who I like a lot more now than I did when he was at Florida.
Seems to be a little more calm.
As most SEC fans probably feel the same way. But Steve's kind of built himself a nice little empire up there.
You really have to be impressed with what he's done. I mean, even Lou Holtz came in there and couldn't build what he's built. A really controversial move when they booted Lou Holtz to get him in there, but you can't fault him for what he's done. The recruits he's gotten in there, the team that he's built, it's impressive that he did it at South Carolina.
And, the world got Lou Holtz as a commentator, so just thank you, South Carolina, for that.
I can never express my thanks.
Absolutely, in the proper way. Not sure what way that is. But
with a lisp, I think.
thank you. That was offensive again. Continuing on our offensive streak here on outputting our coverage.
At least want to show.
Let's talk about South Carolina's offense. Starts. We always find ourselves talking about running backs here. Marcus Lattimore, probably the best running back in the SEC at this point.
I don't think you're going to get a whole lot of argument out of that.
If he's healthy, definitely an injury concern. Seems like he gets hurt at least once a year. He'll probably miss 1 or 2 games. But when he's playing, he's just a dominant running back. I mean, not especially fast or
He's just
especially
a workhorse.
big, but yeah, he just keeps going, and he's shifty enough, and he sees the holes well, and he's going to make a lot of money in the NFL.
I think so. He was the biggest key, I think, when South Carolina upset Alabama.
Yeah,
years ago,
yeah,
so.
he's a great player. Connor Shaw getting better as a quarterback after the Steven Garcia 8 chances fiasco.
That was just ugly.
It's nice to be moving past that, but Connor Shaw a little bit more of a mobile-ish kind of guy. I still haven't really seen a whole lot out of him yet to show that he's a great passer.
I think he's an underrated thrower.
I think he's serviceable for them.
Right.
I mean, when you have a guy like Marcus Lattimore, having a quarterback who's not truly elite doesn't really matter as much.
It doesn't. We talk about it a lot. The run sets up the pass so well, either through play action or just so many people dedicated inside the box. When you have somebody who's a constant threat like Lattimore, it's
Right.
going to make the passing game a little easier.
Right. Certainly a different style of offense than what Steve used to run at Florida, but definitely working for him. The offensive line, serviceable, I guess. Good word.
If they've got a weakness, it's probably their O-line.
Yeah, I mean, they have 3 guys returning starters, trying to break in a couple new guys. Looks like they're slated to have a freshman at left tackle. Never necessarily something you want to do, but
Not a good thing.
I don't know. I mean,
They had problems last year protecting Garcia or even Shaw at times, but I think they got some pretty good experience. They'll be okay.
yeah, they'll be decent there. Wide receiver, one of those things, they kind of got to find somebody to step up into Alshon Jeffrey's shoes. Is the guy Ace Sanders? I don't know.
Ace Sanders has got a lot of speed, but he hasn't been able to prove that he's that down-the-field threat yet.
Right. I mean, he's more of a slasher kind of guy. You're not just going to get another Alshon Jeffrey. It doesn't work that way.
Unless you're the Chicago Bears.
Right. But I don't know. I think on offense, as long as Lattimore can stay decently healthy, South Carolina can do enough to stay in a lot of games.
I agree. And with their defense, they're not going to have to score a lot of points.
They are not. Defensively, maybe not quite as strong as Georgia, but still pretty darn good.
I think the defense is impressive, and it was one of those things that didn't get talked about enough last year. They had a really good defense last year.
Yeah, and a couple guys are gone. Melvin Ingram, a big player from a year ago, but you got Jadeveon Clowney, the number 1 recruit from a year or 2 ago, as one of your defensive ends. Devin Taylor, another name that you'll probably be hearing a lot. Excellent defensive end. I think their defensive line is going to be very, very good.
Very impressive. Javon Clowney was extremely impressive as just a true freshman last year, coming in and really making an impact for South Carolina.
Kind of one of those freak type guys that he was the number 1 recruit in the country for a reason. Stayed in state, went to South Carolina. Linebacker, decent. Shaq Wilson, Demario Jeffrey, 2 seniors. So that, if nothing else, you got some experience and leadership there.
They're not going to have to do as much with a defensive line like South Carolina has.
Right. And secondary, I don't know. What do you think, secondary-wise?
They're unproven. If they've got a weakness on defense, it's definitely secondary. I think we'll see as the year goes on how they'll shape up, but I don't think they're too bad off in the secondary.
No, and I think, as we've said many times on this show, defensive line is kind of what you live and die by.
That's right.
As my microphone dies on the floor, but I mean, they very stacked on the D-line. I think that's going to really, really do well for them.
Well, and it'll also help your secondary out. You can blitz more. You can stay back in coverage more and only blitz 4. Only have your 4 D-line and trust that they'll get pressure on the quarterback. You're not going to have to cover as long. So they could get some help from their D-line.
All right, well, let's look at this schedule here pretty quickly. First game opening up at Vanderbilt. Then they got East Carolina at home, UAB at home, Missouri at home. a trip to Kentucky, then Georgia at home, then going to Death Valley to play LSU, to the Swamp to play Florida, then Tennessee at home, Arkansas at home, Wofford at home, and then they have to go to Clemson this year.
All I've got to say is you better watch out for that Wofford team.
Yeah, Wofford, man, they're pretty nuts.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty nuts. So, what do you think? What do you think there?
I'm thinking South Carolina is going to be your East champ. I think they're going to have a great year. I think this is the year that they finally take that next step, that they come to each game like they should. I do see that they'll lose one game. I've got them going 11-1. The only loss being to LSU.
Wow. Okay. I'm seeing 9-3. Maybe not quite that good. Losses to Missouri, South Carolina. I'm sorry. I'm looking at my Georgia notes here. Losses to LSU, Arkansas, and Clemson.
Okay.
So I don't know. Clemson's going to be a tough team this year, playing at Clemson. I don't know. I think that's going to be a tough one for them. But I do still see South Carolina as the East champs.
With their head-to-head
win
against Georgia.
They'll have 2 SEC losses. Georgia, I would say, would have 3. So I see South Carolina going to that SEC championship game, but I don't see them being able to get over the hump of beating whoever the West team is there.
Probably not. I still think they'll get into a BCS bowl. If they go 11-1, they definitely will. 9-3. And the SEC championship losers, they still got a chance, but it'd be a little bit more of a stretch.
Yeah, so South Carolina, probably the best of the East this year. Let's talk about something a little bit different here, just real quick before the end of the show. You mentioned to me before the show, we're getting close to high school football now. Things are sort of starting to pick up around here. I don't know when the local teams start games. Can't be that far away.
3 weeks, I think.
Yeah, 3 weeks away, so they're probably in the thick of practices right now. But tell me a little tidbit you saw.
Okay, I saw this as a Yahoo report, but I'm reading this off of rantsports.com. A high school football stadium in Allen, Texas, is going to get a little bit of a renovation this year. The voters of Allen, Texas, just recently voted this into law, and they said that they approved it. They want to pay for it. If you had to guess, how much do you think a new high school stadium would cost?
I don't know, maybe like $1 million.
$1 million, something like that.
Yeah.
That's pretty reasonable.
$2 million.
$60 million.
Whoa!
$60 million for the high school stadium in Allen, Texas. Now, they are going to be the Allen Eagles, and they don't even have a dome. If I'm paying $60 million, I'm going to have a dome.
You really needed... Well, I answered my own question here. You do need a dome in Texas. I went to the Cotton Bowl in Dallas a couple of years ago. It was freezing.
That's right.
Nice to have a dome in Texas.
Okay, this new venue will seat 18,000 fans, 7,000 of which are season ticket holders.
Wow.
So how much do you think that you're going to have to charge these 18,000 fans to make up $60 million?
A lot. That's definitely a little bit above old Decatur Red Raider prices.
Decatur Red Raider are adding bricks to the away side.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we got that going.
I'm sure that did not cost $60 million, though.
I'm sure not.
Yeah, so there you go. The excess of football, it's a beautiful thing. You'll be able to drown in that excess here in a couple of weeks as the games get started. We'll be back with our Alabama preview next week. Until then, you stay classy. We'll see you on the other side of outputting our coverage.
Thank you.